What is Max doing?
Is he making a Magento logo?
I think so.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
let's see how this goes. Freehand Magento logo. That's kind of difficult.
Yeah, let's see how I do. That's the.
I've clicked start here. Let's see. I'm trying to see if we're live.
In fact,
it appears as though we are live, people.
Nice.
Cool. We should have a Magento logo drawing contest.
All right.
I would not win, but.
All right. So our ramblings here are live. We are Beer and E-commerce, which is a Friday tradition in the Magento community, at least a brand new Friday tradition in the Magento community. I'm joined by a few wonderful community members. This is the first time we've tried to have 4 on at the same time. Please post your comments in the chat box, and we will talk about whatever you want to talk about. The topics today, we wanted to touch on Philip Jackson as the new MC announcement for Imagine. And then I'm seeing a lot of merchants asking for discounted tickets around Imagine. I want to make sure we touch on that as well. If you're new around here and you want to get more from your Magento store, hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell while you're at it. I look forward to having you as a part of the e-commerceaholic family. Go ahead and thumbs up this video as well. It may suck, it may be good, but we could use the thumbs up anyway. So I'll give everyone here a chance just to introduce yourselves. Like I said, we've got 3 people other than me because I'm not interesting enough to carry this all by myself. So why don't we start with you, Talesh?
Hey guys, my name is Talesh. I am a Magento consultant based out of Toronto, Canada. And I'm usually around the Magento community doing all sorts of shenanigans. So that's about it. Next.
Who's next? Is it me?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm Danielle Mundele. I am the UX researcher at Magento. I am also the spontaneous co-creator of Magento Hat Monday, which has been a thing. And what I do in my role is talk to people across all Magento products, trying to understand how Magento is really used in real life, with the main goal of always improving the products.
I'm Max. I'm a developer. I recently moved to work at JH, which is a Magento agency.
You're breaking up there, Max.
Oh, no.
And a developer. I run a nuisance in and around Magento, doing all sorts of things and trying desperately to seem cool. And I'll let you know how it goes. Limited success. Limited success is how I would characterize my efforts thus far. If we're talking about Imagine, who's going to Imagine?
I am absolutely going to Imagine. That's a can't miss event for me.
I'm absolutely not. So.
Oh, today's the last day to nominate a community member. Maybe I should nominate you, Max. I haven't nominated.
I think it's only for first-time people though. And I have had the pleasure.
Is it?
I read it was anyway, but for first-time people only.
Interesting.
I say nominate him anyway, because I mean, if you don't try to skirt around the rules, then you definitely won't be able to. Like they're not going to kill you if you just submit somebody and they don't take it, right?
Right, and I think
enough. What's the worst that can happen?
There's a question here. Has this community member attended in the past? It's a yes/no question, and that's it. So.
Well then,
they let you submit it if it's a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he just wasn't on record on YouTube, knowing that he has already attended.
I know. We just.
They're a photograph. It's not saying.
What year did you say you attended?
2016.
2016. I mean, none of the current Magento employees were there in 2016. They wouldn't know.
Ben Marks was there.
So today this is a leftover assortment of beers from my Magento meetup tour last week. I don't know what I'm trying here. This is Over the Rhine from Cincinnati, Ohio. It does not tell me what kind of beer it is, so I'm just going to drink this. What have you got there, Talesh? What are you consuming?
Luckily I went out today to get a can of my favorite black lager. It's called Hop City 8 Sin Black Lager. It's a local brew from Ontario. I thought they only made it in summer, but apparently it's available in winter also. So yeah,
That was just leftover.
It is leftover. Doesn't say a date on it.
Does beer even go bad? I mean, really, I've never.
It doesn't go off. Yeah,
find out.
it's not that nice to start with. So,
so what about yourself there, Max? What do you have? You have a glass of something that looks mighty good.
yeah, it's Scotch whiskey. It's from Tobermory. It's a 10-year-old single malt. Tobermory is the capital of the Isle of Mull in the Scottish Inner Hebrides. That's in the southwest of Scotland. I've been drinking this for the last week or so. It's very, very yummy.
I'm not sure why that sounds a lot more exotic than what I'm drinking. Like, yeah, this whole backstory, and it's like, oh, this is some beer from Cincinnati.
Oh, but it's been on tour. It's lived a rock and roll life. This one's just stayed in the cupboard. So.
I think the word Tobermory just sounds exotic.
Tobermory, yeah.
Danielle, did they let you raid the liquor cabinet there at the Magento headquarters?
You know, it's funny. There's a lot of beers. What I'm drinking is Live Oak Hefeweizen from Texas, a local beer here. And
that's a good one.
I looked for beer there, and we actually have a bottle of vodka in our fridge at work. I don't think anybody ever like takes it. It's sort of like one of those like elephant in the room things. Not a lot of people drink here, at least, you know, to that level. So we made creamsicle drink. So there was whipped cream vodka and some orange soda in there. So that was tempting, but I decided to keep it a little bit low key.
Are you in Austin?
I am located in Austin. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be there in a couple of weeks for the Magento meetup. We should totally raid that fridge and take that bottle and drink some of it.
Just open it. That's all you need to do. Just break the seal, and the curse will be lifted, and people will be able to consume vodka with abandon. But I mean, it is called beer and e-commerce, right? And I think I've failed at the first hurdle.
Whiskey is just concentrated beer.
Fair enough. I prefer to think of beer as diluted whiskey.
There you go.
We've got a lot of activity in the chat here. Look at there. We've got Philip Jackson. I looked down for a while, and man, there's just all sorts of activity going there.
This is my first time streaming. How do I? Oh my God, there's a
you got to look for the chat. It's kind of, YouTube doesn't make it easy to kind of pay attention to the chat and then, you know, kind of pay attention to what's going on here. So it's a little strange. I'm going to post a link here, which is kind of our first topic, which is discounted tickets for Imagine. And I've been seeing this a lot. So I want to talk about this first, because once this video is finished and it's posted to the YouTube page, people watch like the first few minutes and then they bail. Nobody's going to sit through an hour of us rambling about beer and Magento. And this is a topic that I'm seeing a lot. So the link I posted, once the video's done, I'll put it in the description. If you are a merchant and you want to go to Imagine, Magento wants you there. They don't really love us developers as much as they love you merchants, because merchants sell things and buy licenses and all of the great things that Magento needs to have us developers hang around and give us awesome things like hat swag, and, you know, merchants pay for websites that then pay for beer. So there's a whole ecosystem here that depends on you guys. So they want you there. If you're a merchant, you can submit that form. If you're already on Enterprise Edition, then talk to your account rep. If you're considering Enterprise Edition, hit up your sales guy. If you're not, then use that link in the description or in the chat. Submit your information. They're going to greatly reduce your tickets because they want you in Vegas. And if you show up and get some great information, that's wonderful. If you come in the morning and then you just stay in the casino all afternoon, that's on you. But it's a great opportunity for you to get there much cheaper than the rest of us. Anybody disagree with anything I said there? Everybody think we're more important than the merchants?
I don't think I'm at liberty to have an opinion on that comment. I would like to meet some merchants, though. I mean, I'm going to be doing research at Imagine, and to get inside the heads of like what actually happens in merchants is lesser known than, you devs are so friendly. And I know, I've made such a good relationship with all you guys, and that's been great. But you're right. It's, merchants are, even to me, it'd be great to talk to merchants, but it's not to say that I don't appreciate you guys also being there.
By doing studies of merchants at Imagine, are you like examining hallway traffic patterns? Like what are we doing here? Are we going to be probing people?
Yeah,
are you going to be like hiding the bathroom or switching the men's and women's signs? Like what are we doing?
Yeah, we're going to totally mess with them. No, a lot of what we want to make sure that merchants are able to sort of interact with Magento and to figure things out. So a lot of times we have concepts for maybe new features we're thinking about, prototypes for how things might look, and we'd like to get feedback before these things are actually built, while we can still make changes when things are under development. So it's a really cool opportunity to see things that are in progress and not yet out in the Magento world, and to have an impact on the direction of how some of these things take place. So that's mostly what we're doing, or we're interviewing people just to learn about how their workflow is, how their day-to-day is. A lot of these things are largely unknown, and I find them interesting. So yeah, that's the type of research I plan to do.
Oh, that's cool. Philip Jackson, if anyone doesn't know, Philip Jackson will be our next topic of conversation. We may kick him out before we start talking about him. But he asked if, Danielle, if you're still paying people for research.
Yes, we do. We do offer compensation. I believe we have gift cards, and what we've had issues with in the past is we want people to actually be able to use them. At Imagine, I'll have gift cards which you can use within the US, but we can also do gift cards on Amazon to whatever country ships to where you are located. And depending on the study, depending on the time, this can be anywhere from $25 up to $50, $75. So yes, we do compensate for your time because I know that's very valuable.
You can buy a lot of beer for $75.
Hey, Danielle, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Originally your research was oh wow, my microphone's going all over the place. Sorry. Originally your research was mostly around like Magenta Cloud and whatnot. Are you also doing research around how merchants use Magenta Cloud, or is it still focused on how development companies and agencies and developers do it?
Right, that's a good question. Cloud is definitely one of our priorities for research. We want this to be easy to use. Mostly we want to look at how people actually get started, and whether that is from a merchant perspective or a developer perspective, we want to understand how people think about it. So both. I think, like I said before, it's harder to get in touch with merchants since y'all are already in the community and easy to find. So yeah, we're looking at the merchant perspective from cloud as well as developers.
Cool. Sorry, I was on mute. Trying to respond to Ali. He wants to know if I'm in my kitchen. Yes, I am in my kitchen. Oh, you probably can't see, but yes, there's a stove behind me.
Real estate's expensive in Toronto. That looks just like the kitchen in my guest house.
It is. It is expensive.
Little do you know about where Talish is staying right now.
Yeah, you do know I have broken into your guest house in Toronto, and this is where I live. Like it really. That's my commute from right over there to here.
Can't beat that.
That's better than Austin traffic.
That's true. Although I take the train, and that's weird because not everybody, they want you driving your cars to use that oil in Texas, right? That's just my theory. But I take the train, and it's not bad. I can check my email and do whatever on Twitter while I'm coming to the office. So
I take the train. So apart from one bit where I lose signal, it's perfect. So.
We don't have trains here that carry people. Our trains carry coal and
Oil and
horse
coal,
manure and cars and things, right? You can't take a train here. And this is a train town. Wow, you can, and there have been a few people that have attempted it, some successfully, some not so successful. Well, there's a funny story that one of the bartenders was telling me at one of the local bars, and there's a railroad track that runs right through downtown Opelika, and on each side are rows of buildings and their bars. And some people will be over at the brewery and they'll try to cross. Well, the train will stop there from time to time, and it'll unload things or drop cars off, and the train was stopped. And this woman and her friend climbed up onto a flatbed and were trying to climb over the train to get to the other side so they could go to the other bars. And the train started moving. And they just stuck on the train. And the train had to stop 50 miles down the tracks and let them off. Her husband couldn't find her. He finally calls her, and she's stuck on the train 50 miles away.
I was hoping that story ended up with, and they ended up in Memphis.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I should clarify, the train in Austin only has like 7 stops. So it's not even like a viable means of public transportation. It's really quite limited. So,
but it works for you.
It does. It works great.
Looks like Danielle,
you
found the chat. Go ahead.
We're talking about Phil. I think if we can compliment him enough to make him feel uncomfortable, I think
I'll set it up, and then we can talk about Philip. I don't think he really likes Phil, so you might want to just kind of get on board with the Philip thing.
I think the technical term is Felipe.
Felipe Jackson.
Yeah. In my head, to this day, he is still Mr. Winkle.
Mr. Winkle, yes, Philip Van Winkle.
Oh no, Ali says
for those that don't know, Philip Jackson was recently announced the new MC of Magento Imagine, taking the place of Benedict Clark, who kind of went over to the dark side there. We won't discuss that any further. He is a traitor to the good guys. And so, speculated that they would obviously replace him, and wasn't really sure who. Magento promoted it pretty heavily that they were going to announce it, and that some announcement was coming. And I thought this sounded like the obvious choice, to have someone that is kind of homegrown. I mean, there's no one more visible or active in the Magento community than Philip is. And so it made sense, but I wasn't sure they would make that call with him working for an SI, for a partner in something digital. And so I wasn't really sure how the community would take that, and, having that strong of a representation for a partner on stage at Imagine. I absolutely think it was the right call. I think it's going to be fantastic. We'll see. There's a few things they're doing that makes me excited. The things like the Instagram takeover and the video where you've got Mark Lavelle in the bathroom. Those things are really funny, and they're doing a much better job of promoting Imagine and Philip being the MC. And I'm just wondering if they're not going to go above and beyond when it comes to the actual event as well. If the promotion is picked up this much, is the event going to be next level as well?
So you're talking about the hype that JH has put out on Twitter, and then when they finally busted out, it was just Meet Magenta UK. Sorry, Jamie. Sorry.
Is that what it was? See, I still didn't even know.
Yeah, we're running a conference in London in June.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. I kind of like the Instagram takeover thing. Personally, I think he needed like a week, because we all know Philip. He puts out 2 or 3 podcasts a week. I mean, when I looked at the Instagram stories, I was like, there's a little bit too much here for me right now.
Just hand the reins over to Phil on the corporate Instagram. Just can be his.
Between now and Imagine, just let him run it. Because then he doesn't have to pack it all into one day, and it was Thursday. I had a lot of work to get done on Thursday. I didn't get a chance to read it, see it all. But yeah, I think also like outside of our like Twitter bubble and our developer community and the people who show up to most events and listen to the podcast and whatnot, he may not be known among like some of the merchants and whatnot. So having something like that, the Instagram takeover that was heavily promoted by pretty much everybody who works within the Magento organization on Twitter was a really good thing, because it's a new face, and it's definitely somebody who we want everybody outside of our little bubble to be familiar with coming up to Imagine.
Talk into the microphone, Talesh.
I was just gonna say you get distant when you look away.
I don't think it's a problem that Phil works for an SI. Like, would it be better if he worked for a merchant from a Magento point of view? Would they rather have, a prominent merchant emceeing Imagine? Probably, maybe. But I don't think anyone seriously thinks that Phil was recruited to MC Imagine because he works for something digital, right? He was recruited to MC Imagine because he's Phil at Winkleson, right? Not like Magento extraordinaire, not anything else. And no one should have a problem with that. Like, he got there, off his own steam, in my opinion. When I first got into Magento, it feels like a long time ago, but then I talked to people and it wasn't that long ago. But he was one of the people who, showed me the ropes indirectly, by being on Stack Overflow, or later the Magento Stack Exchange beta. And I think he's earned everything he's got, and yeah, so I don't think that's a problem at all.
No, I definitely don't disagree with you. I wasn't sure if Magento would make that call. I mean, to me, that was the obvious choice. I just wasn't sure if they would make that call from fear of any sort of community backlash, because I mean, Philip already does a great job of exposure, and I hope something digital, and I'm sure they do. Those guys seem really sharp and to have their act together. So I'm sure they understand the value that the exposure he provides brings to that company. Him being on stage at Imagine brings even more exposure for that company, even if he doesn't mention their name. He still brings a lot of exposure just from his notoriety. And I wasn't sure if they would make that call. And I'm honestly glad to see that they did, because it's the right choice.
And when he's walking around the conference, he's going to have his badge on that says where he's from. People are going to come to him and say, hey, great show. And I don't have an issue with that. And we all understand the value that, evangelism has in this world, right? That's the whole reason, TJ, you're doing, your videos, and you're upping production on so many different things, right? For exactly the same reason. Like, we all think that's a good thing, to be out there and have a public presence. It's got a halo effect that reaches for miles in just about every direction. And, he's killing it. And
yeah, I think following up on that.
Is it? Go on.
Oh, sorry. We're done. Yeah, there's like so many ways you can participate in the community, right? And I was so inspired. I listened to the Dutchento podcast with Sherry that they recently posted, and she talked a lot about this. And, contributing in the Magento community is not just pull requests, right? And I think it's, creating this content and, getting involved. And, that's something that we all enjoy, and it's what makes the community special. So I think this is just one other way to kind of like, give back and be yourself, do something for Magento. And, like you said, I think it's going to be great. So in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense. It was a surprise, but I don't know why I was surprised, to be honest, when I heard the announcement. So.
You mean you, even as a Magento employee, you did not know?
Actually, it was probably a choice made by the events team. I'm not really, they work in the LA office mostly. So yeah, no, none of us at least knew. Or maybe I'm just not in touch with the gossip that I need to be.
Oh, internal Magento gossip.
Here's the question everyone wants to know. Did Mark actually fly to Phil's house and shoot that in his bathroom? or did they fly Phil and then they faked it all?
I don't know. It could be fake Magento. What can I say?
Fake Magento.
Hashtag fake Magento. There we go.
By the way, I finished this OTR, this Over the Rhine, Cincinnati, Ohio shout out. We had a great meetup. We'll talk about that here in a second. And I'm moving to Gotta Get Up to Get Down Coffee Milk Stout, which is Memphis, Tennessee brewery, Wise Acre.
Nice.
I will continue to drink the same beer for this entire stream.
I haven't seen you drink it at all. Like, I don't think
it's like, I don't know, a third of the way. No, I got like 2/3 left.
I brought 4, and I don't want any of them to feel left out by being left on the table when I'm done.
I'm on my second glass of whiskey now, so
I'm an equal opportunity drinker. They're all going to get drank.
I'm only 1/3 in, so I go slowly with beer.
Wow, that tastes. I mean,
They're
I'm
bigger
pretty
cans,
sure I could have got this milk. I could have got this coffee milk stout from Starbucks. That's what it tastes like. It's pretty good.
Starbucks makes coffee that it pours into a glass and it looks like beer because it's all nitro fizzy and whatnot. Just makes you feel like you're having a beer.
This makes me feel like I'm having cold coffee.
Yeah. Problem is when I go to Starbucks, I don't get the usual effects I get from beer. I also absolutely despise coffee. Must be the only software developer in the world who doesn't drink coffee.
I'm not a coffee guy either, and Talesh is going to give me a hard time about this. I posted on Twitter the other day. I got accused of being grumpy, which I was not grumpy. I was being sarcastic. There's a difference. Thank you.
Of course.
Well, it's Kaylin's fault. Thank you, Kaylin. And
Thank you, Kaylin,
Talesh is a coffee snob. And I've just got like Keurig pods here, the McDonald's McCafe Keurig pods. That's pretty much as elaborate as I get with coffee.
I'm opposed.
Talesh, can you tell me how do you make a coffee, Talesh?
I usually do espresso, but if you want to know the real way to make coffee, there's someone in chat, David Daniel Nettleton. He's the one who's having to cover his ass right now. He's the one who could really tell you to make a good coffee. His e-commerce store sells coffee machines. This is how intense this guy is.
He needs to. Hey, we need to work something out here. Apparently, I see the Instagram takeover from Philip Jackson, and he's apparently making a cup of coffee. It looks like a meth lab. Like, I think he's got a meth lab in his kitchen. That's not coffee. What the hell are you
Cunningly
doing?
disguised as a coffee machine.
Yeah, like, you can't put this on Instagram, on Magento's Instagram, the fact you got a meth lab in your kitchen.
Highly illegal.
Yeah, that French press needed a little bit of technique, but I wouldn't call him Heisenberg.
I don't even know what a French press is.
Yeah, Talesh is like, oh, I'm going to be a poser as a coffee snob, but then he's like, his French press technique was off. Like, give me a freaking break.
Mr. Nettleton is in the chat. I can't say anything.
Yeah, he says he could definitely supply us with coffee equipment that looks methy. I mean, I need all like Heisenberg, right? I need like beakers, and we need to get at it.
I use a Chemex. That's like kind of like a beaker.
I was just gonna say the Chemex is the most Heisenberg thing you could get to make coffee.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Mr. Nettleton is the Walter White of the coffee world, right?
So these beers I've got here are left over from our meetup tour, which we're sponsoring a lot of. There are not a lot of meetups in and around the southeastern or really East Coast U.S. I think they've got one in New York, they've got one in Atlanta and South Florida that Philip is a member of, and so we're slowly rolling out more of them, and we're going to add a bunch. But right now we sponsor Birmingham, Alabama, sponsor, organize, and speak at. We have Birmingham, Alabama, we have Nashville, Tennessee, and we just did our first one in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is like a 10-hour drive from me. So that's a pretty big commitment for a meetup.
I'm not an expert in Magento, but I was going to ask, whereabouts are you situated exactly?
Well, we're strategically located in the middle of nowhere in Opelika, Alabama. We're a remote organization. I've got 2 people that work here. We just added 2 video editing interns that work here as well. So there are 4 people work out of this office. Everyone else is spread across the U.S. We have 1 guy in South America currently. And for us, Birmingham, Alabama's 2-hour drive. Nashville, Tennessee is about a 6-hour drive from here. And Cincinnati, Ohio is somewhere around a 10-hour drive. So
Okay.
we try to do Birmingham, Nashville, Cincinnati, because to Birmingham's 2 hours and it's 4 hours to Nashville, and then it's 4 or 5 hours or something like that to Cincinnati, roughly. And so last week, I believe it was last week, week before last. No, I think it was last week. We did Tuesday Birmingham, Wednesday Nashville, and Thursday Cincinnati. Now Birmingham's always great. We've got a large merchant in Birmingham that has quite a few Magento developers, and they usually have 4 or 5 people there, and we'll have anywhere from 12 to 25 folks on average at Birmingham. They do a good job of staying late and drinking all the beer, though, which I'm not sure if, I mean, it's good when we're there and it's like, social, but then I don't get to take any beer home with me, and that's a little odd.
Yeah,
but
if you need beer cleaning up, I can be your man.
Yeah, I mean, you buy a bunch of beer and then they drink it all. Like, that's kind of what we want, but
not all of it, right? That's impolite.
Yeah, that's just too far, right? But I'm getting to a story here. I know I'm kind of long-winded on this, but Nashville, Nashville, we had it at Third Man Records, which is Jack White's label. That was a really cool venue. Rocket Web secured that venue for us. We're still struggling with turnout in Nashville. There's a ton of merchants, but not a ton of agencies or serious Magento developers there. But then we had Cincinnati, and Cincinnati was incredible. We had a great turnout. We had a couple of people from Magento, Zetlin and Eric Irway, and they showed up to actually demo and talk about some of the things they're doing with the PWA studio. So as far as I know, I know more than you do, whoever you may be, about PWA studio, because as far as I know, that's like the first public beta. Now, I don't know much, and you'll catch me really quickly, but we did get to see some of the things they're doing. We had a great conversation, a lot of great questions from the audience. I'm really excited. Being the first, like, the problem with the Cincinnati meetup is we had such great turnout. We had such great questions that I don't know if there's anywhere to go but down from here. So, we'll work that out. But I'm really pumped about PWAs. Have either of you seen the PWA studio or talked to them about anything they've got going on there?
I've seen bits and bobs. I'd wager Danielle probably knows a bit more than.
I was just looking for where the whistling emoji guy is, because I'm like, like, I know.
Yep, I'm not talking to you necessarily. I'm talking to the general public here, right? The audience.
Yes, the YouTube chat.
The 4 people that are watching us right now.
Oh, we got more than 4 people. It's at least 12. I haven't had a chance to play with PWA much at all. I know it's important, and I've had some really important questions for James Zetlin at Mage Titans Austin, but since then, just the time and making the time to play with it and dig into it further hasn't existed. I guess I'll catch up eventually.
Yeah, there are some really interesting things happening on the back end for the PWA as well, just to simply support it. And it's all good, right? Like, it's helpful at all levels, and the whole point of Magento was that you can choose to use as much or little of it as you like, right? If you want to just use the web framework of Magento, you could. That would be a little bit weird, because there are probably, I think, maybe better choices for you if you just want to build a non-e-commerce website. But you can just take the e-commerce features, or you can just take the blank theme, or you can take the Luma theme, or you can take out the CSS or the JavaScript. Like, it's in layers, and you can remove it. And that philosophy, I think, has been taken for PWA as well. So you can use the PWA theme and customize it and launch a PWA with it, or you can say, actually, I know they've built a GraphQL API. We can just use that and build our own front end and make it even more headless than it used to be. And that philosophy is, I think, going forwards for especially the breadth of merchant that Magento wants to be able to support confidently and really well, really important that they nail that. And I think the people working on this are obviously super smart and working really hard to make that work, because it's a tough ask as well. And I'm really looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the thing that intrigues me about it is just the possibilities. And I gave kind of a merchant primer, you know, kind of a PWA, why I think it's going to take off really quickly. You know, I learned some things, and I got some additional stuff. And, you know, from hearing the comments and the questions and seeing James give his presentation. And so I definitely want to kind of rework that into a more formal talk and try to give that, you know, maybe meet Magento or something like that. But the thing that interests me, and who was it? Dave there mentions, you know, some of the PWA stuff is already out in 2.3. And then they're slowly rolling more and more of that stuff out. What people get excited about, when I was giving my presentation, what everybody got excited about and what everybody was asking questions about were around push notifications and adding it to your home screen, which is great. And I answered those questions. I wish I would have been a little more diligent in making sure they understood that those are actually not the important features. Those are features that are going to be cool at first, and people are going to add stuff to their home screen, and then they're going to get agitated at the push notifications, and they're going to delete them, and they're going to add 2 or 3, and then they're going to be like, I don't want to add 100 things to my home screen. So long term, it's not about those glitzy features. It's about the capabilities around the user experience and the cool things that you can do to improve the usability and the perceived speed of your website.
And it's not just like, you know, to me, the most important thing is that a PWA at its heart is just a fast website also, right? And like the number one, by far the most important thing, the best thing you can do for your e-commerce store once you've gotten the basics down is, you know, make it faster. Always, right? Always make it faster. And
you hear that, Daniel? UX is less important than speed. Max said so.
Yeah,
speed is UX, right? It's like they're the same thing.
If you make it happen so fast, you actually don't know what's happening, so you don't care about UX.
Before you know it, you've spent $600 on it.
Like for example, you know, like removing a step, and it's what TJ said as well about perceived performance, right? Like removing a step or changing the way a user does a thing can make a difference, both real and imagined, to performance, right? Of how quickly can I give you my money, right? Everyone, you know, the customer wants the thing as fast as they can get it, and as a merchant, we definitely want their money right before they change their mind. So performance is one of those win-win situations. You know, everyone's winning all the time, and that's the thing that PWA addresses. And as browsers get better, and iOS will probably support Service Worker in the next version, which is a big positive. As these browsers, you know, get these technologies, you can take, you know, leverage more and more things. And you know, like I have basically all notifications on my phone turned off, and there is no way in hell that any e-commerce store is ever going to be able to send me a notification about anything, right? They can send me an email when they ship something, and that's it. But the other capabilities around, you know, performance and, you know, offline capabilities and things like that are going to be, you know, the hope is that they're game changing for the whole web, right? And Magento, I think, is doing well to be, for the first time in a long time, technologically ahead of the curve rather than trying to catch up to it. And they've done well to, you know, with the problems they had with Magento 2 and eBay and everything, to get there. And like I said, I'm really excited to play with this and see what's going to be, and also the other stuff that's coming in 2.3. It's going to be a big release.
Do any of you have you done anything on any of the SaaS platforms, Shopify, BigCommerce, any of them? I mean, there's a million of them. I can't list them all. Anyone have any experience with them at all?
I've toyed with Shopify, but I'm a scion of Magento. So
we're joined by a special guest here. I'll allow you to do introductions there, Danielle.
Sorry, Mark was just pinging me on a Slack. And I was like stealth replying, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you're on air." And I'm like, "Come in and hang out with me."
We are live.
I love your T-shirt.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, T-shirt. Introduce yourself. Tell all the friends who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Mark Brenton. I also work here at Magento. I'm one of our product managers, mainly looking after B2B features.
We were just talking about PWA, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The other TLA.
We got plenty of them.
There are.
As long as you don't change them. Don't do the Magento thing and just change the TLAs every 6 months and we'll be fine.
Okay.
It's Magento open source.
Dude, the thing is I have a hard time adopting the Magento Commerce, Magento open source, just because nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. So when I'm talking to people, I have to say Magento open source that used to be Magento Community Edition, and it just kind of, doesn't really help the conversation move forward any.
Magento Commerce, nay Enterprise Edition.
I honestly, not to mince words, I just think this was like a marketing thing that was not well thought out. I mean, like, I know I'm staring at 2 Magento employees right now, but no, I don't think it works, man.
Well, it's difficult to change something that's traditional or well ingrained. So
yeah, it's going to take a while.
And look, I think Magento's strategy going forwards is to target so many people who are not using Magento right now or not in the same Twitter circles that we move in, right? They don't know what the hell Enterprise Edition is. They don't know what Community Edition is. And the whole idea of saying, this is Magento Commerce, this is an enterprise platform for your e-commerce, we can handle this, for someone who's not in this world already, is what they're going for. As developers, like, we've been doing this thing for 10 years a lot of the time. We're going to stick around, whatever the hell they call it, right? And so I think they did think about it, and I think they're just wanting different things to what, selfishly you or I might want.
Yeah, you're right. And admittedly, like, right now I'm working with a whole bunch, like, I guess, like, since 2015, I've been working with merchants who are on a completely different level compared to what I started Magento with. And it does make sense.
We all are, I think.
Yeah, it does make sense that, a different naming scheme will make more sense to them, because even myself, I'm still figuring these guys out and, how they think and how they approach e-commerce. So yeah, they may be, they may be appointed, but I just have this bias from, my history of Magento.
I think you could characterize it by saying Magento 2 will not be a success if most of the Magento 2 licenses that are sold are M1 to M2 upgrades. Right. Most of the license revenue in 2 years should come from new Magento customers, because they have to grow, right? And I think in that frame, the renaming makes more sense. But it's still only in the last 3 weeks that I finally internalized what those names are and what they mean. And I should know better, right? So
I also think it's in differentiating your product a little more, especially with the addition of Magento Cloud and creating a product around that. And it's not a collection of services. It's not Magento Enterprise on a host. It is a product you're selling itself. And so it makes sense to brand that. And then I think some of these changes in names are just to kind of position each of the offerings against itself a little better. Right. Community Edition is not necessarily some lesser product. Community Edition itself, if you just examine that name, doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why does the community need that edition? Like, maybe they want the other edition. Enterprise just sounds enormous, and like, why the hell do I want to pay for that? I'm just a small merchant, So I think the naming helps long term, once people kind of get over themselves and actually start using it, just helps with positioning.
Especially because the Magento community is a different thing as well, right? Like,
Exactly.
It seems
That's confusing.
certainly anecdotally, most people in the Magento community tend to be working with enterprise Magento clients because we're the people who are near it the most and doing it day in and day out, right? Like agencies who justify their existence by doing Magento work generally don't do that on community. I think like agencies who do Magento and other stuff, whose developers are less likely to be active in the Magento community, tend to skew towards Magento open source.
Yeah, especially if you're going to specify partners, non-partners, most and Magento community, those are very loose terms. What does that mean? If you're talking about partners, people that are in the ecosystem that show up to conferences that we know, that we see, that are active on Twitter, that are giving back, that are, submitting pull requests. And then, yeah, I would say the majority of those are going to be working in enterprise. But when you just start throwing out terms like community and most, that's a whole different ball game with a different measuring stick. But, we're not here to really, beat on Magento for the naming. I was just making a joke about the TLAs.
I think I've convinced myself that it was a good idea now.
Sold.
I'm here to beat on Magento. Sorry, guys.
They need that sometimes.
I just pounded on the table and my extra monitor cut off, so now I can't see what the hell's going on. I don't like it. Just died.
When we changed commerce order management to Magento order management, so we dropped one letter.
That's better, by the way.
Just to simplify for you.
Yeah.
Once Magento B2B stays Magento B2B, I'm good with that.
Well, it's like we need both B's. We can't just be beated. Nothing. Or nothing to be like that doesn't make sense.
And it's 3, so that's the standard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why TLA is a joke, right? Because it's true universally.
Yeah.
Should we talk about B2B? Since we've got the guest for it as well, right?
Hey, it's a surprise visit. I say, why not? I mean, I was going somewhere with the PWA stuff, but when the guest demands it, when we get the right people on the call, we might as well go with the right topics.
Oh, sure.
Or we can see how much you really know about PWA. That would be fun too.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know that I can add a lot of value.
Who's used B2B?
Are you asking as far as us who's used B2B?
Us, anyone in the chat, anyone, yeah.
Lightly, we've been selling it hard. I think it's functionality wise from a partner perspective, it's a game changer. Being in the southeastern United States, it's a big difference. We're in an area where there are not a ton of enterprise grade B2C opportunities. There are not a lot of big B2C merchants in the state of Alabama. There's not a lot of them in Georgia outside of Atlanta. I mean, there are some. They do exist, but they're not enough to build an agency on and stay in business for a very long time. So B2B gives us the opportunity to really market our home turf, which we feel is good. That sounds good, right? I mean, I can get projects where I don't have to drive 10 hours to talk to them. That just sounds like a good deal to me. So that's good. The features being there, especially when you have some other platforms coming out that we won't talk about in this conversation that, are focused on B2B. And then you have some of the SaaS platforms putting out, or at least claiming to put out B2B functionality, even though when you look at it, it's not really anything exciting. So to have that in the core, we feel like from an agency perspective is a big deal. It makes selling an enterprise license a lot easier. It just, just does because it's there. So, it's a great system. We're really excited about it. We're looking forward to doing a whole lot of B2B builds. Traditionally, we've done a lot of B2B e-commerce. We work with a lot of brands that manufacture. They have B2B and B2C aspects of their business. But the actual Magento B2B functionality, we're just kind of getting fired up with.
So you're saying down in your area, it is a significant amount of manufacturing companies that would be a better fit for, just your general area.
Yeah, just Alabama, the Gulf Coast, really. Right, I mean, you start talking about, all the way over to Houston, Texas, and up through Gulfport and New Orleans and Mobile and, you know, on down the Florida coast there's a ton of importing, exporting, distribution, manufacturing, you know, people that need a lot of those B2B features.
Right.
But even if you just get up into the state, if you just get around here, there's a lot of HVAC, electrical, there's a lot of automotive. I mean, Alabama is pretty much the automotive manufacturing capital of the United States at this point. I mean, we've got, what, four or five major automotive manufacturing plants in the state. We've got one or two just on the outskirts, so a ton of tier 1, tier 2 suppliers. I mean, we got to figure out how to interact and leverage those guys to make those sales. But there's just opportunities all over the place.
Right. I think the B2B was one of the best things Magento's done, because we've all, those of us who have been around for a long time, we've always tried to shoehorn B2B functionality into Magento. And I mean, Mark stopped me when, you know, I'm getting past what I should be saying. But before the B2B came out, I mean, I was trying to get a hold of people at Magento saying, look, we're building this kind of, you know, B2B-ish stuff thing, and it'd be nice if it was in the core or we had some help. And you know, it wasn't the first time, but I thought, like, you know, okay, we have Magento 2. It's time we have this sort of thing, because Magento's moving up market. We're not playing in the mom and pop shop space anymore. I mean,
no, absolutely.
The company that I originally did Magento 2 B2B, you know, builds with, and when Magento 2 first came out, we were going up against Oracle and Hybris for, you know, multi-state sales of liquor in the New England area. So at this stage, I don't think B2B should even be, you know, something that's tacked on to enterprise. It should be, like, you know, one of the first and foremost things, because we're talking about trillion-dollar markets here, not billion-dollar markets.
Mm-hmm. What I love about this conversation, though, I mean, it's a great conversation and it's great insight, but we have the B2B guy on the call and we haven't even let him speak about it yet. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, we've already said it.
I was waiting to ask you, TJ, all the clients that you talk to, or the people, whether it's inbound or outbound marketing, however you're talking to them, what are they running now that they're looking for this to solve their problems? Is it they have nothing, they have some ERP module, they have, what is their current situation?
Here locally, just about all of them have nothing.
Yeah.
Most of all of them, if they do have anything, it's some god-awful system you've never heard of that they picked up that was particularly focused on their industry. So if they're HVAC, they're running some system that some company put out as an HVAC distribution you know, platform. So it's always just something odd. I never run into someone running something legitimate. And if I do, it is a Magento 1 community edition build where they literally shoehorned a bunch of stuff and manipulated the hell out of, you know, customer groups to do something weird with it.
Oh yes, customer groups. Yeah, and that's right. I think, like, that matches my experience too. And e-commerce generally, you know, outside of the more developed markets, is almost an open field. There are so many businesses, especially on the low end, that, you know, don't have a strong e-commerce presence. But in B2B, it's like that. It's like it was 10, 15 years ago. So many B2B clients that I've seen in the, you know, in the time I've been in this world have been, they haven't had a B2B web presence. Maybe they had a B2C web store, but they have, like, for selling wholesale, you phone them. And it's such a huge market of, you know, often way high volume, right? And like, I've worked with clients where, you know, at least 10 times their revenue came from their B2B site once we built it from their than came from their B2C site. And there's no reason in my mind that Magento is not well placed to take advantage of those. Certainly from what I've seen of the B2B platform, which is not, I've had no direct interaction, but people I know have been getting into it. And someone in our company kind of set up a Slack channel where he's almost live commentating his interactions with it as he's getting into it. And it so far seems really quite well thought out. And I'd recommend anyone getting into it, because one thing that this colleague missed in particular is in the user guide section of the Magento documentation, so not the dev docs, but the merchant facing docs, there's a B2B user guide. Read it because it's good and it tells you at least how it should work.
Yeah.
Like rather than just like getting in and saying, oh, this is Magento, this is another module, and so on. It demystifies a lot, and I found that wasn't well circulated. So I'm going to try and amplify that as much as I can.
So my question for you would be, what's next with B2B? Like this is obviously, and I've heard Magento say several times that this is not the end of it. You know, traditionally Magento would find a need and they would do something and they would fill that gap and then they would move on to some other initiative. And the fact that B2B's launched and you sat down in that chair and you said, hey, I'm working on B2B means we're still working on B2B. So what are we working on?
Right. So I can't tell you everything right now other than to say that, yes, we will continue this year in 2018, enhancing and developing the B2B features that we put out in 2.2. And a lot of it is just continuing to make the things that are there easier, faster, more efficient. So certain things, for example, can be done via API. We'll make sure those can be done not just that way, but also through the admin. Enhancing things like we have a user permissions on the front end for B2B for company buyers, continuing to enhance and expand what's possible there, those type of things. So it's really just building on what we have and continuing to add more capability to those types of features.
So is the PWA capability going to extend to the B2B features as well when that is released?
Yeah, we are integrated, so you can expect anything we do with PWA to apply to all of Magento. So B2B is not like an exception or another part. We're coordinated on development for that.
Okay. And you know, with most of the B2B merchants I've talked to, the PWA functionality and the really the mobile experience is not as important to most of them because almost all of their buyers are going to be desktop anyway. So
Really?
it's not like super exciting. Yeah, I mean, if you're selling AC parts, the vast majority of their people are on the phone in the office. You know, somebody will fill out some sheet of what they need, and then somebody's sitting at a desk and they place an order. Right? That's a lot of the merchants.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the old school. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, B2B doesn't have to be mobile first, but you might have to support IE8.
So the old school B2B used to be, a bunch of people in a room with telephones and, reams and reams of paper,
The dot matrix printer.
Yeah, the dot matrix printer. But
fax machines, yeah.
I've noticed that, some, and this was particularly in the last B2B site that I quoted on, they had salespeople going out with iPads. And the iPads were doing like, they'd pull up quotes and just, do all sorts of stuff on site with their retailers using iPads. And I think at that point in time, PWA is just going to kill it.
No, it's definitely something that is interesting, but it's not as important, right? It's one of those things where it's like we don't have anything, or what we have is complete and total garbage. Let's just get something decent. And then let's go pie in the sky, right? Let's just get a decent thing so somebody can order something and not call us all pissed off at us. And then we'll worry about, people on the ground with drones and iPads and stuff, right?
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at that phased approach, or even if it's something like we will get a portion of the product catalog online, or we are going to enable, reorders for consumable parts or replacement parts, and things that are larger that the sales team needs to consult on. Maybe that's not there in phase one, but that's still, for most of these companies that don't have any online presence to their B2B buyers, it's a huge step forward in what they can offer to their customers.
Yeah, it's always an interesting debate to me as well when people say we don't get mobile buyers, right? Or we don't get mobile purchases. And is it because your site is miserable on mobile? Or is it because your buyers don't want to buy on mobile? So there's some interesting debate around that as well. But when you're going in to try to sell them an e-commerce platform, you've got to really touch on whatever their pain points are. And mobile right now, for just about all the ones I'm talking to, is not a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a question from Danielle in the chat.
Having a website is a concern, right? Like, going from nothing to a desktop website is still a huge upgrade. So, one step at a time. Then we can convince the B2B customers to use their phones to order stuff. Right?
Yeah, I don't want to go into somebody that doesn't have a website and start talking about a headless Magento installation on cloud with a PWA front end and React and GraphQL, and like they're just like, damn, I just wanted a website that sold something, you got it. This, these folks are they know their business and they know what they're doing, but they, some of them don't even know how to cut on a computer, nor do they want to.
Yeah, in many cases, it's you're competing with a fax machine, which is not a joke, but because that is the scenario.
Absolutely. So, what you got? Any good juicy tidbits of what's coming? Maybe that we didn't touch. I'm gonna just keep hammering on that. Make sure we've got everything from you that you can publicly announce.
No, I don't have any exciting public things now. Although I always have to push the fact that with our community engineering team, we are prepared to accept, pull requests for B2B too. So as you do more builds, if you find things that will enhance it, that's something that you can work with us on to get a contribution right into the B2B module. So a lot of people think we only take community contributions for, open source, but that's not the case. So from our partners, we take contributions for commerce, for B2B, any of that stuff.
Nice. Well, I'm switching. I appear to be the only one that's really into the alcoholic portion of this broadcast.
In fact, I didn't know you were going to come. I would have told you to bring me another beer.
I see folks drinking a little bit, but I'm on my third one now. Now we are an hour in, so this is kind of our time slot, but I've got 2 more beers. I'd better start drinking faster because I do plan on finishing these before I leave.
This ain't 4.5%, I'm falling deeper and deeper into a hole here. So
yeah, you have been consuming pretty regularly there. I'll give it to you. Max wins this episode of Beer and E-commerce. Max wins.
I'm not even drinking beer. I feel like I should be disqualified. I do want to kind of go back, like Daniel, we kind of Talish was about to raise his questions and prod Mark, and I feel like we should go back to it.
Yes, we should.
Because one of the things he mentions is back-end quotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like a feature I've built at least twice, like getting quotations, saving a price, having it be able to print off so that I can get sign-off from my boss so that they can authorize the purchase. I can then take it back to a store or online and say, yes, I want to now commit this purchase. Can we have it sent to us? Can we please have 25 office chairs sent to us now? That's a massive feature, and it kind of ties in. It's no longer the buzzword du jour, right? Of omni-channel, right? But the whole idea of admin functionality for B2B, like making everything that you can do on the front end do by the back end, so that I can still run my B2B operation over the telephone, right? But I'm now doing it into Magento so that I have this single entry or single source of truth for my sales workflow. Simplifies, potentially my business structure as a merchant considerably. And that, I think, I don't want to, put you on the spot, but that would strike me as the next logical place to build out this functionality, is not just saying, yes, we can do e-commerce, but also subsuming the older part of that business.
Yeah, I can tell you we do have that on the roadmap. So in 2.2, we put out the ability to, the buyer can submit a quote. So they're requesting the things that they're interested in from the front end. We have a process for handling that and handling the negotiation, working with the merchant and the buyer. But you bring up an important scenario that we haven't overlooked. We know we need to cover it, which is where I want to propose something to the buyer, something that they might want to purchase, and go ahead and initiate that and send it to them. Or in the scenario you described, I've spoken to the buyer in another channel, so in person or offline, or they made a phone call. Based on that conversation, I want to put together a quote and send it to them to simplify their purchasing process, let them know what we can offer, and sort of get them farther along to convert that order.
Yeah. And that's like, I trust the Magento product team, and that includes you, Mark, and also you, Danielle, in terms of requirements gathering, right? But like B2B feels like, and we haven't delivered a project with it yet, so like bear with us because we might encounter new things, but it feels like the kernel of a product that's been well delivered. And I find it difficult to fault like the product ambitions of Magento over the last, since Magento 2, in terms of like, everyone's known what the next most important thing to do is. And the trouble's always been on, delivering those things. Like we had, pain with the merchant beta in 2.0 and 2.1, and 2.2 is amazing. Like using it's just so much better. B2B feels like a stable product already. And I wasn't expecting that, right? I was expecting like, okay, we're going to put up with it for a while. And then like in 6 months to a year, 2 years, it's going to, like the kind of pain we felt with cloud, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's a secret to say that cloud has been fun to deal with, but also I will say has improved and is still improving, more and more rapidly every month. And it's nice to see that whatever issue it was that was between what Magento wanted to do, which has always been, in my mind, spot on, to what they are actually capable of delivering, like we've reconciled those two things now to a point where the machine seems to be humming better. And that's one of the more encouraging things I've seen out of Magento in the last 6 months. Yeah. Starting with B2B. And hopefully that carries on with 2.3 and PWA and everything that's coming next, along with also continuously improving Cloud Edition and the other core parts of the product offering, including, MOM, obviously. And I may have missed something in Magento's portfolio. I feel like I didn't. I feel like I nailed them all, but let me know if there's another massive part of the product that I did.
And one thing,
business intelligence.
Yeah, one thing we did to, you talked about that process of going from the merchant beta to 2.0 and then through 2.1 for B2B. We tried very hard to take, all the lessons that we can learn out of what happened, especially in that process of merchant beta to 2.0 GA. And how can we make sure we do anything that went right again and not do anything that went wrong? Improve that process.
Yeah, I know I gave feedback on that process.
Yeah, so for 2.2, for example, we had early access to the code for a lot of our partners. I think I want to say it was north of, 150 partners that were able to have take a look at that code. Some of them were developing sites that were close to ready to go live when 2.2 came out. A very small number of sites went live anyway early because they were just confident in their ability to support it and what it could do. But having that feedback up front and then incorporating that into the product, I'm glad to hear you say that 2.2 was a better experience. And we tried to make it that way by getting that feedback up front as opposed to after the release.
Oh yeah, hugely, And the biggest problem for the merchant beta to 2.0, in my experience, was that it was massively not backwards compatible, right? In several huge ways. Like upgrading to 2.0 was a massive job, not least because of PHP 7 compatibility, right? And 2.0 to 2.1 was also not a small upgrade if you had a highly customized site. And 2.1 to 2.2 was something I looked at a few months ago because I was merchant side, and I passed on it. I said, like, no, this is not a job but like 2.2 has been described by a lot of people to me as what should have been 2.0. And I don't think that's true because there are other factors at play more than just stability of platform and product. But there's truth in that sentiment that 2.2 is a different beast. And 0.1 was better than 0.0 and 0.0 was better than the merchant beta completely. But there's, I think, a difference in like, quantity is a difference in kind now that 2.2 feels different to work on just every day that I'm dealing with it.
Yeah, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention again the community in 2.2. We took a huge number of community improvements, community bug fixes in that release and continue to do so. I mean, that pace has only accelerated since then. But I'd like to think a lot of what you see that change in just the overall experience of does it just work in 2.2 we get from the community.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially the changes that have come into like the command line experience, which is something I interact with a lot as a developer. Like the static asset compilation just got like insanely faster.
The speed, like the first time I saw that run, after I put it on, I was like, wait, what? Did I do something wrong? It couldn't be done. You know,
like I had a project that I maintained for a while and still do that kind of compiled static assets 6 times faster than Magento did in a completely compatible way. So the idea was any Magento 2 theme would compile with my way too. And I kind of integrated NPM scripts with Magento and put it into bin Magento commands. And I'm still proud of it. I still think it's great. And it let me do a few kind of neater things as well because I wasn't bound by PHP. But like I haven't felt the need to install that by default since I've been using 2.2 because like it's so freaking fast now.
Great.
And like I love my extra work being made irrelevant, kind of.
Yeah.
But it's also really super encouraging on a different level, right? And you know, like hats off to Magento. I don't want to kind of inflate their heads too much, but something seems to be working now.
Too late. You've already inflated their heads. They're on the call. The important folks are on this chat, man.
Oh, we got to knock back down those egos.
What have I done?
So is there anything else in particular anybody wants to talk about? We were on Magento Imagine, and then we kind of, snaked through the other conversations. Any predictions as to any surprises? I don't know if the inside folks can really talk about any surprises that may be coming at Imagine, but the rest of us sure can speculate.
I'm not going to talk about any surprises coming in.
No, I think I knew more surprises probably last year, maybe not in the loop as much this year. I would just say, as I say every year, bring your most comfortable shoes. Now, it's going to be a really great experience this year because the main session, where you expect the keynote sessions, are now in the theater as opposed to that large room. I can't remember the name of it. So it's going to be, I think, a really exciting keynote experience. But you'll walk between there and the other rooms, so it's a little bit more distance.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. So are they expecting a bigger crowd if they're moving it, or attendance? As far as I know, has been what, 3,000 or so. Do we have any idea what kind of crowd they're expecting this year?
I don't have any exact figures, but as far as I know, they're on track to meet or exceed that. So. Yep.
Nice. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to chat? I mean, I've still got at least half a beer here, so I've got a few minutes left before.
Oh, actually, that swag, I saw the tweet about the Magento swag that people were, I don't think that's Imagine swag. I think that got sent to Austin, if I'm not incorrect. And that's
so are you saying like meetup swag possibly, or?
I'm not really sure, but I know if it was sent to Austin, it's not going to be for Imagine. All that stuff is in California. So we can dispel that Imagine myth as unimportant as it is.
I think I started that one. It was just somebody tweeted something about swag, and I'm like, Rhonda? Rhonda? Oh, that's a different Rhonda. And then I realized that everyone thought it was Imagine swag, and I'm like, what did I start?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's Imagine swag. I think probably there'll be some interesting things. I can't wait to see what the store is going to have this year.
Right.
The socks are really fun, and the rubber ducks, I love it all. So
if there's not toques / beanies at the store, I am going to be pissed off. I mean, like it gets cold.
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be an unexplainable drive for hats this year.
It's Magento Hat Monday, isn't it? Guys, am I still audible? Because I had to change my audio setup. I just want to know if I can.
We can hear you.
All right,
yeah,
fantastic.
Let's talk
carry
about
on talking, please.
Let's talk about Magento Hat Monday, right? Now, this is one of those things that just kind of popped up out of nowhere. I was busy. I was on my meetup tour. I come back and it's like, hey, everybody, it's Magento Hat Monday. And I'm like, what is this? What cause are we supporting? Are we doing something? Like, I I don't know what this is, but I wore a hat. I took a picture. It's cool. I like hats. It really covers my really big forehead, so it kind of helps my look a little bit. But you know, what's this about?
It honestly is about Rebecca getting a hat from what I assume is the partner summit.
She got it from Jamie. I'm still filthy about this.
And she was just talking about getting a hat on Monday. And I'm like, hey, I also have a Magento hat. I will wear it. We'll be twins across an ocean. And then I just like got a weird motivation to like tweet it. And I'm like, let's see if people will also wear hats. It'll just be like a funny thing that like 3 people do. And then and now Magento, without even like, just randomly was like, oh, we're doing this at Imagine. And I'm like, oh God, I didn't really think about it. I was homesick. I was eating lunch and I just tweeted and it has become a thing now. So
I don't own a single hat, which has been a point of consternation for me over the last week or so.
I'll fix that for you. I'll fix it.
I just said that Jamie is responsible for Rebecca's Magento hat, and that's not true. I have to issue a correction. Janak, who is JH's client services manager, he gave Rebecca his hat. They were at the Achieve summit together, and Jamie has given his hat just today to my lovely colleague Ella, another account manager, and I didn't even realize I could have asked one of them for a hat, and I'm very upset about this as a hatless individual.
So are you publishing a retraction just because Jamie's in the chat over here watching this live?
No. I'm publishing a retraction because I was wrong. I hate being wrong. Also, Jamie's not even here right now because he's behind because he rewound. So I'm in the future. He's in my time zone, yet he's in the past.
He'll catch up. He'll catch up.
No, he's talking about hats right now, dude. He's talking about, you're in trouble. You are so in trouble. But I think this is the big story, is that Rebecca Brockton has the audacity to, just because she got a hat, create a holiday for hats.
How dare she?
And I'm particularly salty because I've been asking for Magento 2 for about 3 years now. I've been offered a Shopify one, and I was tempted to take it just
go to Jamie over there. Yeah,
but,
no, not Jamie Huskisson. That's Jamie Clark.
Jamie Huskisson says they have a hat left over, Max.
Yeah, I know. I just saw that. I want to know how. Because 2 people went to the Achieve Summit and 2 hats were dispersed. So,
well, maybe you were like me and there were an awful lot of leftover bags and you might have left with 3 or 4 hats.
Oh, I would.
I mean, I'm not claiming I did that, but I'm not claiming I didn't.
I will do my own Magento Hat Monday if there is a hat on Monday that I can wear. So it'll just be me.
Hashtag Magento Late Hat Monday.
Belated Magento Hat Monday. Yeah, absolutely. Just for Max.
Yeah, well, a lot of other people didn't know it was happening and planned to do it this Monday as well. So I doubt you'll be the only one doing it.
It's not cool to be on time to a party, right? 7
Let's see
days
how
late
many.
is totally acceptable.
I saw them for the week.
Nobody said which Monday. Let's see how many consecutive Mondays in a row.
Rebecca said a Monday. She said the 2nd Monday in February every year.
Yes.
She did. She ruined
She's
it.
not the one that makes all the holiday rules here, okay?
Yeah, she ain't in charge.
Technically, my holiday. I made the thing. It was
exactly.
Danielle, will you allow me to wear a hat on Monday?
I will. I think you wear your Magento hat whenever you want when you get it.
All right. It's coming soon to an Instagram and Twitter near you.
All right, so what we need to do is a Magento Hat Monday every Monday from now till Imagine.
If I had a Magento hat, I would wear it every Monday.
Jamie's got you one, right? Are you guys in like the same town? Is he
like
hiding behind the dry erase board behind you? Well, I mean, I didn't know if you were like remote or if you were like working in your kitchen like Tilesh there.
Hey. My kitchen's a nice place to work.
No, I work in the lovely JH office.
Okay.
Can't say enough nice things. So.
So there's a hat there somewhere for you. Track it down. It's on you.
Thank you. Best boss ever.
Unless you're not in the kitchen, you're in the break room of your office. Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the lovely Jamerson office, which is great. I love this office because I just get to like literally, I mean, I don't literally own it, but like I just take it over. Like I have moved the conference table sideways in the office. It's taken up, a whole bunch of space. I make people move around. I've got chairs thrown everywhere just so I could get this awesome backdrop.
It's so you get the depth of field and the logo and everything.
Yeah, you get, I get I had to get the not neon, but the LED illuminated logo in the backdrop there. So I just kind of, but that's the great thing about everybody being remote. There's nobody here to complain about it.
No.
Especially the beer fridge right behind you.
I feel like if I'm amazed that no one's walked behind you to sneak a beer yet.
Oh, well, I mean, the thing is there's nobody here. So there were 3 people other than myself here when we started. The 2 interns, like it's 5 o'clock, it's time to go. They ain't hanging around. And then Will, one of our developers, left just a short while ago, but they never really hit the fridge. If I were to turn a little bit and you could get the bathrooms over there in the background, you might see them every once in a while. But
that's what you wanted, right? You were complaining about people taking too much beer from the meetups. Your employees seem to be like model employees in that regard.
I do, the thing is I do enjoy bringing home beer from the meetups. That's just one of those perks of sponsoring the meetups is that we bought all of this tax deductible beer.
Yeah.
And then I get to bring it to the office.
I may or may not have nicked a bottle of wine from Dot Mailer's office in my time.
I enjoy remote employees. I enjoy the fact that they can do what they want. Real estate here is pretty cheap, but getting Magento developers here is not easy. So I get to have, a moderately sized office. I don't need a huge amount of space to grow, but I do miss kind of having people here and the interaction. And, we do a lot online and I think we're doing a good job and we're getting better at it every week. But, it is kind of nice to have people around, but that's what I have this for, right? I've got you guys.
Oh, we'll be your, in situ employees. But it's one thing I'd love to talk about. We've got Danielle and Mark here who apparently seem to work in the Austin office.
You do, yes.
TJ, you run an agency that has a lot of remote employees. Talish, what's your working situation? Do you commute to offices or do you work?
No.
My guess was you fucking travel the world, right? You're never in one place.
He lives in a Jeep, man.
You're up like Mount Kilimanjaro and you're committing source code.
I've been in one place
TLS or whatever. So
I've been in one place for multiple months, but I work from home.
Multiple months.
Now, right?
Like this, if he's been in the same place for 2 months, he's got to bring it up. It's like I've been in the same place for multiple months. I feel like I'm getting stale. It is time for me to move on at this point. It's been 8 weeks.
As a product manager, I see an opportunity for GitHub to have a new feature here that it should log like where you make each commit from. So then you can see like a map of your commits and like Talesh, you can have stuff all over.
It'll be a game. We'll gamify your commit locations.
So instead of people trying to spell something out with their little green boxes, they're going to be trying.
I love those games. I love like making it look like Space Invaders. But you can cheat with those things, right? Like you can upload like a Git repository. Like people have gamed it to spell that. I find that distasteful. No, you should time your contributions.
Yeah.
I feel like the people who employ me wouldn't enjoy that. Like, sorry, I can't do anything this week. Like, it's not my fault.
Yeah, I have 2 spaces here.
But like, I'm interested because it's one thing that I've always found so hard, and companies like Basecamp talk about remote work a lot. But like, what's Magento's attitude towards remote employees? I know they had like a reconsolidation of their dev team in Austin, and like remote to me is so hard to get right because your comms have to be so good, and it has to be like no one's left out of anything. Like almost like if we have a remote friendly culture, I can't grab someone who's in the office and pull them aside for a chat because that's then tribal knowledge that someone who's not in the office is just not going to get. Right, like the difference is if 2 people in the office that I'm in go and have a chat and I overhear loosely what they're talking about and I know that I'm kind of part of that thing, I could walk over and say, oh, by the way, I can contribute this and that. if I'm not in the office, I have no idea that conversation took place, and they may go down a road that I wasted time on, or so on. It's those kind of microscopic things that make, to me, remote work seem so hard.
Yeah, I think that's true. Most of our remote people are, typically not doing software development, field sales, other roles that make sense for them to be remote. But probably, I mean, TJ, you are the expert on this. So
yeah, so TJ, what I'm asking is, how do you make it work?
Yeah, there's a few ways.
You answer that.
Also, we lost Talish. I just want to point that out.
Yeah. So we're going to run out of batteries here on this laptop. So I don't want to get cut out.
Well, and we'll cut it off here in a second, but I do want to answer your question. There's a few ways to make it work. One, you have to be fully committed to remote. It's very, very difficult to have in-office people and remote. The way we make it work is that pretty much everybody's remote. Even the people we have here regularly,
Hi, Talish.
I'm gone a lot. Welcome back, Talesh. But it's a fully committed remote environment. And if you're going to have local people and remote people, you've got to be very careful. And that is a fine line you have to walk to make sure there are not conversations going on that your remote employees are not privy to. There's also relationships that are built in person. So what works for us is that everybody's remote. There are 3 certified Magento developers in the state of Alabama. I'm one of them. And we hired the other guy. 3. There are 3. We hired one. It didn't work out. The other one is working for a very large merchant in Birmingham, Alabama. Great guy, but there are 3, right? So and that's 2 hours away. So if we wanted to grow, we either have to grow developers or we have to offer remote. Well, you can't grow developers if you don't have the capacity to train. And so you need those people to train. So, we're still trying to navigate if we start hiring locally or we start training locally, because we have a great engineering school here. How do we handle, remote versus local? But when you're all in and everybody's pretty much remote, it's not that complex. Now, you have to do things to try to build culture. You have to really work on communication. You have to leverage tools like Slack really heavily.
Yeah,
and
Slack's amazing.
Yeah, and we're working on some integrations and things to try to improve our communication. We're always looking to improve. If we have it, there's no being perfect. So we're always looking for ways to improve our communication and, how people give feedback and how they interact with one another. But those tools like that are critical. And you just can't half-ass it. I don't understand how companies work where 95% of their people are local, and then you've got a few remote employees that are just kind of out on a ledge by themselves.
Yeah, if there's like a worst practice, I've seen the same. It's where you have the majority, but you got a few people that are remote. It's very hard for them to be integrated to the team. But we need to drop here from the Austin office.
I think we're gonna call the live stream at this point. I think it is
the call, so I don't know if anybody else mentioned it, but the current pricing for Imagine, if you sign up, gets $200 more expensive tomorrow. So if you don't have a ticket and you want to register, there is a cutoff today, February 16th.
Tomorrow for me is 32 minutes away. So.
For the 6 people.
I think that server time zone for the cutoff is probably somewhere in the U.S. I don't know which time zone, but yeah.
So for the 6 people that are watching, because the rest of you are going to see it tomorrow, and you're going to be like, man, we missed that.
Missed it.
I did update the description of this video. There is a link to the merchant discount request. I don't know if those discounts go up after. I don't think they do. So submit your discount request if you're a merchant. If you are a developer, then today is your day. You should have went ahead and submitted. Imagine is one of those things that is a can't miss for us. So as soon as the tickets go on sale, we buy them. So that's pretty simple. But any parting shots for anybody here before we call this a wrap?
If you're looking at the recording of this and the ticket prices have gone up $200, I have a discount of $25. I'll give it to the first person who emails me about it. You can find my email online somewhere.
Also a security, kind of like, if you can find Talesh, you can find this discount.
Yeah. Yeah, for hacking you.
For sure.
Yeah, Talash, when's your birthday? Is it the 1st of January 1970?
Sometimes.
Yeah, they have to send the request for the discount to your house and address it with your mother's maiden name on there. Then they'll get the discount.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's got to be encoded in base 64 using, you know, a key of my social security number.
Yeah.
Here's my GPG public key.
Look, my DMs are open. Just DM me and say you want my $25.
Well, I appreciate all of y'all joining. I appreciate everyone out there watching this. Again, we try to do these every Friday. Some Fridays I'm not available, and unfortunately, I am kind of integral to these actually occurring. But you know, thanks for watching, and please subscribe to the page. We would love to have you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Cheers, everybody.